All right, welcome everybody. We have another fun Till End webinar. Today we're going to be talking about making meaningful DEI changes with Orion Township Public Library. And today with us, we have Dan Major, Lori Morris, and Troy Walker to talk us all about those kinds of changes that they made. Go ahead and get started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Major. I am the head of adult services here at Orion Township.
I'm Lori Morris, and I am the volunteer engagement specialist and shelter coordinator.
And my name is Troy Walker, and I'm the technology librarian here at Orion Township Library.
So we did this presentation originally at MLA in Kalamazoo a couple months ago, back in October. And we were asked to present again for TLN, so here we are. We'll have time for some questions, I think, at the end, as long as we're efficient with our presentation. So feel free to type them in the chat as we're going along, and then we'll try to address them at the end. So I'll give a brief outline of everything that we're gonna try to talk about today. DEI, for those of you who may not know at this point, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a principle that we're trying to apply at all levels of the library, from collections to marketing and advertising to employment policies and library policies. So this outline tries to touch on every category of library service. So we're going to talk about forming a DEI committee and what we did. To make this committee, we started with an anti-hate statement, which was drafted by our board. We'll cover some library policies, digital equity and inclusion, library collections. We had an ADA audit, both physical of our building and digital of our website. And then we'll share some resources for DEI in your library. And we encourage everybody to look at this kind of as a toolkit for improving DEI and improving library services for everyone in your community. Try to take away at least one thing from this. We have a whole laundry list, but feel free to pick and choose to kind of strategize what you're going to do in your library. So the DEI committee itself, we have members from every single department on the committee, and we try to meet quarterly, so it's not too much work, because this is a work-heavy committee at Orion Township compared to some of the other ones. And we wanted to make sure to include people from, maintenance is going to have a different view of people from circulation, from librarians, from shelvers. Maintenance is going to be a lot more involved in things like the ADA audit and making sure that the physical building is in shape for all library users. So make sure to try to get, all those different perspectives. And then I like to start off every meeting by reviewing our accomplished goals. So the first bullet pointed list on our meeting agenda every quarter is a ever-growing list of tasks that we've already accomplished, like completing the anti-hate statement, completing a conference presentation, updating policies, that kind of thing. And that way you can look back and see, hey, we really have done a lot of work and started to make a difference. We go kind of round robin and give updates on existing projects. There's a lot of things that are small and quick, like just making sure that your step stools are not blocking an aisleway that it meets those ADA requirements. So that might just be picking a sign and putting it somewhere. Those are quick projects, but something like the overall audit has been, now a 9-month project. And then we come up with ideas and we brainstorm about what can we address next. One of our ideas was to have some cultural programming benchmarks. And this past month, we worked with Lake Orion Community Schools. We had a big MLK Day art gallery from, I think, all 3 levels of the schools in the building here, and it was very popular. So the anti-hate statement, this was one of the first projects that we decided to tackle. And we started to draft one on our own, and after some discussion, we decided that it might be more meaningful if it came from our board. And that is one thing that the DEI committee, we don't have control over policies. We don't have control over a lot of things, but we can offer suggestions to the director and to the board. And they may add it to their discussion list, they may not. And luckily, our board has been very receptive and very active. So they took the initiative to do some research and to draft an anti-hate statement. It took them quite a while. I'd say at least 9 months for that too. But they did quite a bit of research on this. So I won't go through the whole thing. You can see it there on the screen. This is posted to the library website under guiding principles. So it's not a library policy, but it is relevant in kind of all of our service and programming and everything. Now, the statement, you can go through this. The statement, I felt like it did miss the mark just by a little bit, and I had a hard time for a while articulating why I didn't feel it was as strong as it could have been. And then right after, or right before our presentation in October in MLA, I stumbled across this article from Book Riot, which again, I won't read in full, but it's called Inclusivity in Library Collection Policies. It was posted on September 8th of 23. And it basically addresses, you do need to state your full intention and be very specific, and who this is, who is this policy aimed at? Who is it protecting? What is it protecting? And I feel like our policy is still a little bit vague. It's a good start, but it may be something we want to revisit in the future, and we can talk about that with the board. But again, this was their first foray into this type of activity and work. So it's a good jumping off point, and it's a good thing to look back for staff, again, as a guiding principle in our day-to-day work on the DEI committee. So I'll hand it over to Lori, who's going to talk about some updates to library policies that we've made.
Thanks, Dan. Policy manuals, as you know, tend to be one of those to-do list items that maybe the director, your HR department, or your board of trustees takes a look at, updates, and then they put it away, and nobody really talks about it. So as we began our DEI committee journey, we felt it was important to find a great starting point. So we started with reviewing our employment and patron policies. These really set the stage for our future, as they are really the framework which we can kind of edit as our needs of our community change. So imagine it kind of as the roots of a tree, creating a strong foundation which we can grow. And we are a newer DEI committee, but it's a great way to start your committee, is looking at those policies. So we were really grateful, like Dan said, about the support and buy-in from our director and our board of trustees. Just keeping those lines of communication open is important for productive discussions going forward. And it feels good to have their support. So let's start with the employment policies. The state had already approved recreational use of cannabis years before. So we propose that they eliminate THC from the drug panel screening. Also, the LGBTQ+ protections prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And then we also wanted to include pregnancy protections for pregnancy, maternity leave, and also breastfeeding accommodations. So as for the patron policies, we now offer the option of a preferred name in Polaris, as some people want to have a certain name associated, not the official name on their ID. We removed the gender on our library card applications as well. And we added library cards for unhoused patrons that may be in a temporary situation, like perhaps maybe temporarily homeless for a short time. So as long as they have like a state ID or a military ID, we will take that and provide access for them to still enjoy the library and use our services. So I'm going to turn it over to Troy. He's going to talk about our digital equity and inclusion.
Okay, so when I first started on the DEI committee, I felt that I was in the unique position as the technology librarian to start looking at the library's efforts when it came to digital equity and inclusion, and just seeing what we could do better, what did we already have in place. And for me, that process started with actually defining digital equity and inclusion, So in ALA's 2022 Digital Equity Report, they define digital equity as the condition in which individuals and communities have the information technology capacity that is needed for full participation in the society and economy of the United States. And then digital inclusion refers to the activities that are necessary to ensure that all individuals in the United States have access to and the use of affordable information and communication technologies. So the report also states that the digital divide disproportionately impacts aging populations, incarcerated individuals, low-income households, people with disabilities, racial and ethnic minorities, and people with language barriers. So all of this to say, if there was any question about whether technology plays a role in digital, in DEI work, I'd say yes. Digital equity inclusion definitely falls within the scope of DEI work, just because of its ability to impact those marginalized communities. So I think it was important just for me to start the process of reviewing what Orion Township Library is already engaged in to ensure that everybody has access to the technology that they need in our community, and also think about what we could do better. How can we expand our existing efforts, with the ultimate goal being that our patrons, especially those in impacted communities and populations, know that the library is a safe place, that they can come to access technology and also receive digital literacy instruction and to build their skills, and staff are able to help them when they need it. So about a year ago, our existing efforts were we had Wi-Fi hotspots, Chromebooks, iPads. We still have those. Right now, we have about 20 hotspots. We have 11 Chromebooks and 2 iPads in circulation. And then about a year ago, before I started in the role of technology librarian, we had limited tech help appointments due to limited staffing. But when I ended up joining the staff as a technology librarian, we were able to expand access to that tech help. So we do have one-on-one tech help as a service regularly available, beyond basic tech help that we offer at the reference desk. The service is regularly marketed in our newsletter every other quarter, and patrons can book an appointment online, over the phone, or in person at the library. And then these sessions, they are typically about 1 hour in length and are geared more towards individual patron needs and outcomes. So if a patron comes in and they need help with Excel, I'm gonna end up doing prep, kind of form like a little lesson plan where we can go over stuff, pick out resources in which they can continue on in their learning. So this service has been pretty popular. On a slow month, we have anywhere from 5 or less appointments, and then on a busy month, we can have up to 10 appointments. So patrons in our community are taking advantage of the service. And after I was doing these tech help sessions for a couple months, I noticed that I was always wanting to point patrons in the direction of existing resources, free resources online, where they could take control of their digital literacy. So I ended up making a beginner tech skills page on our website, in which I was able to pull together all of those resources. And this was modeled after the Seattle Public Library and the New York Public Library's tech help pages. And it includes basic to intermediate tutorials, such as typing and mousing tutorials, but also Digital Learn, which was a partnership between AT&T and the Public Library Association, GCF Global, Grow with Google, Mel's Learning Express Library, and LinkedIn Learning. So all of these resources kind of pulled together, and just for us to have a place in order to point patrons to, or if we have patrons visiting our website, it is available for them to discover on their own. We averaged about 18 views a month on this page, and since we just did an website migration, we added it to a general tech page, and that's going to be we're going to have to see how popular that is with our new website. And we also have just gotten started with pop-up tech help in different parts of the community. So me and the outreach coordinator, we visited a subdivision that's pretty geographically far from the library, as well as at a coffee shop, and we offered tech help right on the spot. We offered tech for checkout. And this service wasn't initially popular, but part of our upcoming plans, we re-strategized and we're actually going to be doing pop-up tech help at senior living communities. So we have one planned for the month of March and April. So hopefully that'll be a little bit more popular than our initial launch of that. And then some of our other upcoming plans, because we're really just at the beginning of the work we should be doing to up our efforts for digital equity and inclusion, would be to right now adding an adaptive computer station with keyboard and mouse accessibility, and accessibility features enabled on a computer station. And we're also looking into a low vision reading station for patrons that are low vision and with technologies such as magnifiers. And we're also looking to add multiple languages to our website, in addition to some other things that we've changed on our website, which I will get to in a few slides. But for now, I'm just going to hand it back over to Lori, and she's going to talk about sensory items in our library.
Thanks, Troy. To improve inclusion and accessibility for our volunteers, our patrons, our visitors at the Orion Library, we wanted to provide a variety of sensory items, increasing comfort and customer satisfaction. So in the slide, you can see this is Trevor. He's one of our adult volunteers that comes in weekly. He is cleaning picture books for us. He does a great job, and he puts them in alphabetical order when he's done correctly, which is awesome. He is autistic, and he is using some of our noise canceling headphones, which we have available in sensory bins, both in our adult and our youth department, who it's accessible to anyone who's at the library that day, but he enjoys using these very much. He also has some fidget tools, which I'll show you in a minute. Sometimes it depends on how his day is going, what maybe the sound level is in the library. If we have a children's story time, sometimes it's a little bit louder. So he'll choose to have a fidget tool or a weighted blanket available. So those are some nice options that we wanted to provide for people. So in order to do that, we wanted to apply for a grant, and we did this a few years ago through the Library Services and Technology Act grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. This was administered by the Library of Michigan. And we were really grateful to get this, and it gave us a great start in starting our collection. So I would recommend looking into grants such as that to get your collection going. I think it's been really received well by our public and our volunteers. Our library also has a wish list that's on our website, and it's a fantastic way for your supporters to kind of see what we're doing in the way of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then they can donate toward other items that you may want to add to your library as you go forward. And we always learn so much from our patrons and our volunteers that come, like, how can we make this library more accessible for you? How can we make it more inclusive and comfortable while you're here? So we've learned quite a bit. So I think you can really learn just by listening. So there are a few other items that I brought along to show you from our sensory kits and bins. So I'll share those with you. We have just some sensory items that they can hold onto while they're here. It just has different textures, which they really love. We have some stress balls. Who doesn't love a stress ball? We all need one of these at our desk sometime. We have some fidget tools that are mesh, and they have a marble in them, and they can just have it handy. These little plastic doodads are able to be bent and moved however they feel, and they like these as well. And then we have the silly shapes, which also have different patterns, and they'll set them next to themselves when they're here, either volunteering or just enjoying the library. And then lastly, we have the wobbly cushion, which is nice and soft. It's got different texture. Some of them like to sit on it. Some of it like to just have it next to them. So there's lots of options, and we have many other things, but those were just a few that I wanted to share with you today about those. And then also, we wanted to add a few other inclusion, accessibility items that really made an addition and a difference in our community and those who use our library. So we also decided, we should include this on our website. So we have a diversity and accessibility collection resource that can be found on our renewed website as well. So we found that people really like having that option to look at what we have. So some examples include here in the slide, you'll see that these are some of our adult volunteers using our core vocabulary boards. And this is a great way for those who are nonverbal to kind of communicate with us or the librarians or staff at the front desk. Some of the individuals actually have either a tablet that they can wear around their neck on a lanyard, and they can use that to communicate by pushing the picture to go along with what they want to communicate. Or they have an app on their phone. But these are also, these paper items are right at our service desks, at the front desk, and our youth and adult department desks. So they can communicate with any staff while they're here, so we can try to help them. So other collection resources that we have include discovery kits, which have a few books in them, some small games, manipulatives, pertaining to concepts or life skills. They're great for visual or tactile learners. Some of the topics include like healthy body, healthy habits, getting dressed. So these are all nice things to be able to take out. They can be checked out. High-low books are something else we've added, which are mature, complex themes. So they're high interest to the individuals, but they're at lower reading levels. So it gives them the content that they want while setting them up for success, and they feel good about it. So memory kits are something else that are very popular. Our outreach department does a great job in sharing that also on our visits to nursing homes and assisted livings. They have DVDs, photos, activities that help recall and reminisce about maybe patriotic memories or seasons or homemaking. Reading glasses that patrons can borrow while in the library is something else we decided to offer. I know that without my reading glasses, I would be lost at the library. So sometimes people come and forget their glasses, so it's a great way to add another service. We also have SNAP Storytime, which is special needs adult programming, and we offer that about 3 to 4 times a year. This is for ages 18 on up, and this includes some kind of movement, sometimes chair yoga, Tai Chi. We also have videos and stories that we share, sensory stations that we set up, a craft and a snack. Usually lasts about an hour, and we get great turnout for this. About 50 people from our local school system will come, or volunteer groups that currently volunteer at the library. And something new that we just are beginning is adding cultural and accessibility programming benchmarks to enhance our programming and inclusion goals for our DEI committee. So we're going to go forward with that, and we're excited about adding that as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Dan, and he's going to talk about our collection audit and diversity collection.
This project was kind of my pet project when we were doling out things to work on in the committee. And so we just wanted to make sure that, you know, our collection had enough diverse materials from a variety of underrepresented authors and with main characters who identify with those communities too. There's a couple ways about that you can go about starting that. You can do a collection audit, or you can do a reverse audit. Standard collection audit is generally very labor and time and potentially money intensive. I believe some of the distributors, or like Polaris, offer full collection audits. But that seemed, you know, we didn't really need an analysis of the entire collection. We just needed to see what we were missing that's important. So the way we went about the reverse audit is to identify underrepresented groups. We came up with 9 different categories that can be, you know, South Asian, that can be Asian and Pacific Islander, that can be LGBTQ+. We have neurodiverse as a category. And the goal of this was to ultimately make these materials more discoverable and increase circulation of the materials. So after identifying these groups, we identified some reading lists and some award lists from these self-identifying community groups. So ALA, you know, great, they provide a lot of great resources, but it's a relatively homogeneous group of people, as our librarians, obviously. So we want to kind of reach outside our own sphere of comfort and get some authentic voices and, you know, find out what is the NAACP Image Award, and then purchase according to that. There's a lot of, we found award lists and book lists and, you know, a lot of great titles and a lot of great content for each of our categories, so it is out there. And we just went through the past couple of years of these awards and ordered to fill in the gaps. And this does include librarians who do collection development, but may not be on the DEI committee. So it did take a change in workflow a little bit and a little bit of training to get everybody kind of moving in the same direction. And every year, we try to go through these award lists and update and order appropriately for our respective collections. Now, the diversity collection itself, now that we're getting all of these books that we did not previously have that are coming into the collection, how are we going to make sure that they circulate, that they're easy to find? How are we going to feature this and promote the work that we're doing? Lake Orion is, again, a relatively, you know, higher income homogeneous community. If you peel back the surface a little bit, it is a little bit more diverse than initially appears. But we created, we call it our diversity collection, and the items that go into it have to meet two criteria. That would be an author and the subject, if it's you know, fiction or nonfiction, or characters identify with that minority group. So this is ensuring that, I know own voices is not necessarily the most popular term anymore, but authentic voices or own voices are kind of what's included in here. And then when we're ordering, we use Baker and Taylor. So in our notes field, when I identify a title that is a candidate for the diversity collection, I can add to the notes field, this is, you know, diversity collection, and this is going to go under South Asian literature. And then our cataloger, when she sees those notes, we modify field 650 and then use that to we created a consolidated search for that as well. Now I was just talking to a librarian, I think from Sterling Heights, who said they started doing something similar to this, but they are using record sets rather than the MARC record itself, which now in retrospect seems like the easier solution to the problem. And you know, if you're part of the TLN Greater Network, or if you're in suburban library co-op where you're not doing a lot of copy cataloging, where it's handled by the co-op, the record sets might be a better option for you too. And even us as a standalone, it might be a better option for us. But we do have a link here to our diversity collection. So Troy, if you can navigate us to that page. And we have a brand new website that's been up for, I think, under a month now. So we decided to add a full diversity and accessibility page to cover a lot of what we're working on. But the first thing that is on this page is the diversity collection. So you can see these are the categories that we've chosen for underrepresented authors and topics. And if you click this, this will link out, you can click any of them, it'll link out into our catalog, and you can see we have 187 results currently in this category. And I even just on Friday, I had somebody come in and her daughter was, I think, 13 years old. And she said she only wants to read young adult books by Black authors. So I was able to do one click, limit it to young adult materials, and find that right away. And like, when you're questioning, wow, does anybody use this? You know, I've been waiting for that moment that happened on Friday to see this actually in action. So that was really great to be able to use. And so each of these links, you know, links to their respective collections, their varying sizes. They include youth, teen, and adult content. And then we can go back into the presentation. Now, we did include at the bottom, actually, can you click back over for a second? Librarians began adding books to this collection in August 2022 and are working on adding existing titles as well as adding new titles monthly. The collection is intended to be a useful tool for locating works by underrepresented authors and is not intended to be a comprehensive literature survey. We felt the need to include that because not every single Toni Morrison book is in the Black literature section yet. And, you know, we didn't do that full retrospective collection analysis. So we are, I can confirm, missing some core authors for a lot of these categories. But we have a spreadsheet where we're constantly updating and constantly adding new things to the collection that are already in our collection and new materials as we order them. And then it's important, you know, when we're looking at featuring these items and trying to increase the circulation, this strategy of just making them more searchable and findable helps publicize them, but it's not othering them. We're not putting stickers on the spine. We don't have a separate section for LGBTQ materials. Those are generally big no-nos. So we're able to get those same results without having to resort to strategies that might bring about other problems. And then we did make sure to create some weeding guidelines for these materials because they might not circulate quite as much as some of our, you know, maybe not as much as Kristen and Hannah. We wanted to make sure they do get their time in the collection before they're weeded. And circulation is not the be all end all of the quality of a collection. We want to make sure that there's variety and breadth in the collection too. So we basically, I won't go into the details of the weeding guidelines, but we give them about a 25% berth when we're pulling weeding reports. So if we're looking at items that haven't circulated in, let's say, 4 years, DEI collection materials might be 5 years instead. So we have some guidelines for that, but we leave that up to the discretion of the librarian who is handling that section. I'm going to hand it back to Lori, who's going to talk about our accessibility audit, which has been a huge project.
It has been. Thanks, Dan. We thought it was important to get a review of our physical space to make sure we were doing everything possible to provide an accessible and inclusive space for everyone that visits the library. So we were searching for a company that would be able to share their expertise with us. So we found Disability Network of Eastern Michigan, and they were excellent to deal with. They provided us with an ADA site review of our physical space with a certified ADA coordinator, including both our indoor and outdoor space. They are located in Troy, but they serve the Huron, Lapeer, Macomb, Oakland, Sanilac, St. Clair, and Tuscola counties. And if they don't service your area, they said they are more than happy to try to find you someone in your area that would be able to do what they do. We actually had the accessibility audit in person. It took about 2 hours. It included members of our DEI committee. Our director was also involved, and also members of each department, so they could kind of focus on areas that they may see. Someone at the front desk may be different than someone in maintenance, obviously, the shelvers, and then our librarians, of course, in the youth and adult department. The cost, we were very lucky. We were lucky to have it conducted for free at the time they were doing it for free, but now they do charge, still reasonable. They have many different services available to offer you, whether you needed maybe both just a physical one, or if you wanted physical and digital accessibility audit as well. So they're, you know, very open to discussing different options for you. So they gave us a really detailed report afterwards to look at with positive and things that we needed to work on as well. It was 57 pages, so it was very thorough. So we actually took it to heart, you know, that, hey, these are really things that maybe we didn't think about, and it was really eye-opening. So some of the items, just a few to share with you, there were some sidewalk spots that needed to be filled or patched that could cause a little bit of, you know, struggle for someone with a wheelchair or a walker or a cane. Shelving stacks to remind us that they have to be 36 inches apart. And for the majority of it, we were. There's a few areas based on your building sometimes that you may have to look at and try to adjust if you can. The restroom entry door closers, this was something we didn't really know about. but including the proper pull force, which is 5 pounds. So we adjusted ours. I think ours were like 7 or 8. So we were able to easily have our maintenance staff adjust that and make it easier. Easily removable chairs for wheelchair access to, at our tables. So that is a big help. Our self-checkout stations, there was a garbage can that was kind of underneath. We thought we were doing a good thing by having that there in case someone needed to throw something away, but it was kind of hindering people with a wheelchair getting around to use that station. So we just made a simple little move of a garbage can and we were ADA approved. Also, our parking lot is something that is in our strategic plan, so we're in the process of redoing that anyway, but there were some good suggestions about the handicap spots and curbs and sidewalks and area outside. So we are including that in our strategic plan going forward. That should be happening soon, hopefully. Signage within our library. There was good information about the height that the sign should be, the colors, the contrast of the actual signage, and including Braille on those signs as well. We did get really positive feedback about our new front doors. They're sliding automated double wide doors, so it's so much easier for those that may have something hindering them, like a wheelchair or a cane or a walker trying to get through those doors and holding items or holding onto a child's hand as you're coming through doors, trying to pull them open. So our committee, though, didn't want to stop with the accessibility audit. We wanted to extend that to the digital accessibility audit. So Troy will talk about that.
So when Lori and Dan asked me to be a part of the website audit and the digital accessibility audit, I was excited to increase the accessibility standards of our website, but also curious about the state of our website. I have been just new to the role of technology librarian, so I wasn't quite sure how much work it would be, and I wasn't quite sure how we had kept up with accessibility standards on our website. But we were overdue for a revamp of our website, so that kind of happened at the right time as we were doing this digital accessibility audit. So our first meeting was with the Associate Director of the Disability Network. And this was a virtual meeting on Zoom, and he gave us a basic review of our homepage and our website overall. So we gave him information about the platform we were using. It was WordPress at the time, but we had since switched to Wix. We talked about our fonts, font sizes, color selections from our branding kit. And he told us that we needed to start reviewing closed captioning for our videos that were featured on our website, just to make sure that we were keeping up with closed captioning for those videos. And then also asked about our alt text practices. Did we have any alt text practices for adding alt text to pictures and buttons on our website? If we didn't, were we going to come up with a plan, that sort of thing. So we were given an automated report of our website's compliance status for meeting web content accessibility guidelines, also known as WCAG. I say WCAG for short. And then this automated report was from a third-party company and tool that they use called Accessibility. And we were given an overall non-compliance status with WCAG, but we did fail in some areas, but we didn't fail in all. So it was really nice just to look through that report and see what we were doing wrong. The report goes over 3 categories of things in your HTML code of your website. And that is screen reader adjustments for blind users, keyboard navigation for motor impaired users, and then user interface design and readability for the visually impaired. So that was just some of the things we discussed in our first meeting. And then we ended up having a second meeting about a month later, which was much more of an in-depth discussion where we addressed those critical issue areas in the report. And we got really specific with some of the stuff we needed to change. We needed proper page headings in our HTML code. We needed navigation labeling on our menus. We needed pop-up labeling for pop-ups on our website. Overall, there was about 20 instances in our HTML code. And then the associate director was able to share resources with us to help us achieve WCAG compliance and just showed us like what we could do to actually change that. He also made some broad suggestions such as scaling down our homepage content, scaling down navigation menu items on our homepage, adding a footer to our website. These are all things we did not have, or the footer we didn't have on our previous website. We had a lot of content on our homepage in the previous website. So that was just stuff that we took note of because we were going in for this bigger change. And then he also suggested that we create an alt text committee for consistent use of alt text in graphics, buttons, links, forms, and pictures. After we were given this report, me and the web coordinator, who's also the head of IT, we just kind of analyzed some of the immediate changes that we could make without having to do too much work. So that was just adding alt text where we could, making sure that we had closed captioning on all the videos on our website, adjusting font sizes to be at least 13 point in size, checking for accessible color combinations, so that sort of thing. And then we analyzed the work that was going to be more long-term. So we went into the audit knowing that we were due for the website redesign and revamp. So we knew that scaling down the homepage, consolidating web pages could wait for this larger scale change. And then more complex changes to code to increase accessibility could also wait when we were going to do this website migration. And then after this meeting, we also created the web team. So staff in different departments in the library, we added people to this web team to help with some of the heavier workload and share the audit documentation. So just an extra layer of accountability and just pulling in more people from different areas of the library to make changes that we can. So when we did our website migration, we actually just finished about a month ago, so early in February. We became beta partners with Innovative's Vega Promote Web product. So we have finished, our website is live now. There was a couple things in our way. We did get hacked back in October, so that was kind of a thing that threw a wrench in our plans and kind of drew out a lot of that process. But going through this audit really gave us a chance to prioritize digital accessibility during this migration process. We were able to work on alt text as we were adding in pictures. But since we are done with the website audit, there is going to be another audit likely, in that we are going to conduct ourselves. And we're kind of looking into tools, probably using the same tool, Accessibility, and conducting another audit just to make sure through this migration that we are actually keeping up with WCAG standards. And we're also looking into getting a grant in order to add an accessibility widget that can do screen adjustments. So there are some plans for that, and that's something that we are able to add. So I would say that overall, it was really convenient that we were doing a website redesign at the same time as this digital accessibility audit. So if you are making larger scale changes to your website, I would suggest maybe throwing in an audit there just to make sure that you are WCAG compliant. So, and then we'll do the conclusion.
Okay, I think we're making good time. So like I said at the beginning, we look at this presentation as a toolkit to give you some ideas of how to start the DEI process at your library. And if you're already doing it, please steal our ideas. Plenty of our ideas are stolen from other libraries too. That's what makes libraries nice, as we all share. But the first step, I think really when you're gonna start making systematic changes like this is to get buy-in from staff and stakeholders. It's a big job to take on your own. So, you know, work as a team to take care of it and get buy-in from your supervisor or your director or your board. Everybody's library is structured a little bit differently. Everybody has different amounts of freedoms of what they can work on. And, you know, maybe if you're a city library, the way we have it structured may not work for you, but there still are ways that you can work independently to improve DEI in your organization. And then gather demographic information about your population. We're librarians, it should be pretty easy to do that. But getting that snapshot really helps you identify where you need to focus your efforts on. Some communities may need more in other categories than other communities do. And examine every facet of library services from top to bottom. That's collections, marketing, policies, employment policies, displays, technology, and all that. Make a concrete plan, get it in writing, have a roadmap, and get people on board with you. And it's always an ongoing process. Like I said, we have an anti-hate statement that I would like to see redrafted at some point. We're always adding items to the collection. We're always trying to come up with new programs, improve the website. So wherever you can identify a need for improvement in your library, take that action. And that, if you're in a community where this is not going to be well received, you can do things, if you're the only person that is willing to work on this, you might have control over end caps or displays or things like that, and you can start featuring more diverse books. And it might not be the largest scale thing in the world, but you can make some small and easy changes with accessibility or things like that to start the process at your library. So that is pretty much it for our presentation. We'll be open to questions for about the next 10 minutes or so. Can we see chat?
Yes, I was gonna say, I was like, we already have a question from earlier, so I wanted to make sure it got read. If anyone wants to add more questions to the chat or wants to come off mute, just let me know. But the first question, I think that one's pointed at Lori. Can people check out the items from the sensory collection, or are they only using them in the building?
They're only in the building at this moment, but we do have there is a sensory kit that's separate from what's available at the library for all users, and people can take that out. It's a separate kit, kind of like a discovery kit, but that kit is available for checkout, yes. But the rest of the items that I brought, that's always here in 2 bins that are available when you're here.
Perfect, perfect. Then another one that just dropped in the chat. How many staff are on the DEI committee?
Currently 6. Last year it was
7 or 8.
7 or 8, yeah.
Perfect, perfect. And then we're just rolling through these questions. What projects specifically did you add for LGBTQ plus identities, individuals, or in your library policies?
So this was prior to the Elliott Larson civil rights update that the state of Michigan has had. And we are an independent millage library, so we're a separate entity completely from the city. The city has like a non-binding agreement about LGBTQ plus employment and housing and things like that, but it's just like a statement. It's not a law. It's not anything substantial. So we just added that to kind of the protected classes statement that comes with all the standard verbiage and employment. Even though that was our policy, I think our practice before, get everything in writing. And like we said with the anti-hate statement, be as specific as you can with everything like that.
Perfect, perfect. If people have more questions, feel free, if you need to just raise your hand if you want to come off mute, or if you just want to drop them in the chat, more than happy. I also have a question. You're talking about getting buy-in from some of the people who might support this work. What was that process like for you?
Pretty good, actually. It was more the making the commitment to, okay, now we've got extra meetings, now we've got extra projects, because like I said, this is a time-consuming committee, and we've done a lot of work. I don't want to say we had much pushback, but I feel like there's been some staff that have questioned it a little bit and felt like we're maybe overstepping our bounds and things like that with policies. But just explain to the staff, we make suggestions to the board for this. We ask the director to bring up this topic and we put it into their hands. So that kind of answered their concerns, I guess. But I mean, our committee signups, we just put them up at the beginning of the year, and I think most committees are like a 2-year commitment here. It doesn't have to be, but that's kind of the standard. So everybody is encouraged on our staff to join at least one committee every year.
Perfect. All right, I'm not seeing any of the questions in the chat, but feel free if there's anything else, I can read questions or you can come off mute. If I'm seeing everybody kind of, I see a comment. Thank you for taking the time to do this presentation.
Yeah. Thank you for-
One last thing before you wrap up, what do you think was the most meaningful impact that you saw from all of this work? Maybe like a small story or a takeaway.
I think I've had really good response from our volunteer groups that come to this library on a weekly basis. So they've started to see the changes that we've made and the offerings that we have with the sensory items and just trying to be a better listener to our community. So we've heard some really great comments and feedback about that. So I think the physical aspect, I'm seeing that as a response, you know, the doors, just simple things, the restroom doors, you know, just making it easier for people to actually use our library. It's a positive. And it's, some things are so simple that we just didn't even think about it. So this has opened our eyes and it's made the public happier. So I've seen that aspect of it. And then also like the digital stuff as well. People that use our library, you know, if the website is easier to use, they're, you know, they are able to use our services and get products that they really want. So we're so grateful for our IT staff that's done so much with that. So, and our librarians doing all of that diversity collection updates, and that's a lot of work, but it really, like Dan said, you know, the moment came when somebody came to him and said, I need this, and we, you know, it actually worked. It's like, oh.
Yeah, that would be my example is that and being in like 2 or 3 clicks to be like, okay, here's 100
Yeah.
books for your daughter to choose from that she's going to be interested in, and like having that happen like the week before this presentation, I'm like, oh, I gotta remember this.
Mhm.
And then we also just in the last 2 months probably added adult high-low books. And we were thinking, you know, this will be for, you know, neurodiverse populations or whatever it might be. But somebody came in that teaches ESL classes to adults, and they're like, oh, high-low books are great. And she checked out every single one that we had just bought and put on the shelf within the last couple of weeks. So seeing those collections get used in the way that we imagine it being used in our minds, I think for me is really satisfying.
Yeah, and I would say my thing goes to Dan's, like, being able to actually use the diversity collection and seeing like patrons use it in real time, and like also just being more conscientious of like putting diverse books in displays and on the shelves. Like just seeing those books fly off the shelves after you put them up, like I think that's just like, I mean, you know that people are reading these books, that's what they want to see. And just being able to use the tools that we set up, I think that's just like the most, it's rewarding, so.
It does take some time to actually see the results though.
Yeah.
Great, perfect. Well, I'm not seeing any other comments in the chat. Thank you all for your time. This is a great presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.